Hey, what's up, YouTube? Happy Friday. I want to talk to you today about a Netflix thing. All right, that was a short intro because this is a pretty sobering Netflix documentary. How you doing? Happy Friday. Hope your week went all right. I hope your year's going all right so far. Thank you for tuning in now and in the future. Welcome to the Random Channel, where we have completely homegrown, homemade, organic, unscripted, unfiltered content. No advertisements, no biases of trying to get you to buy anything or believe anything. Hey, it is what it is. Anyway, today I have a recommendation for Friday night movie night, Saturday night movie night, weekend movies. I know a lot of us love to watch Netflix and look at different true crime things. Sarah Blaze Hayes, you and I have been talking about the Murdoch trials, and I think I will be doing upcoming video on my thoughts on the whole Murdoch thing, okay? Because that's a whole other can of worms. But tonight, I sent this out to a bunch of my friends who are into true crime and who might be interested in it. Monique Olivier on Netflix. Highly recommend this one. This is a triggering one. It's a heavy duty one. So, I will let you know. Trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. But why am I giving you this? Because it's very important, I think, from a mental health perspective. Monique Olivier, Accessory to Evil. Check it out on Netflix. I think there's 5 episodes, okay? And as you can see here, a little bit about it. From 1987 to 2003, Michel Fournier cemented his legacy as France's most infamous murderer. But his wife was an enigma. I hate that they call her an enigma, really. I hate that they use that word. Seriously, that is not the business. But what they mean by that, basically, there was a mystery. There was some. It wasn't as straightforward as people might have thought, or as she might have wanted people to think. Was she a pawn or was she a participant? All right. So, spoiler alert: if you haven't watched this yet and you don't want it spoiled, pause this video, go watch the series, and then come back because I'm going to be talking about the details. So, spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Again, if you don't want to spoil, if you want to watch this before I lay it all out, pause the video, go and watch it. There's 5 episodes, and then come back. If you already have watched it, cool. If you don't care and you just want to hear what I've got to say, cool. Let's continue. All right. Excuse me. Excuse me. So, Monique Olivier and this guy, Michel Fournier, he was not just another serial killer. He was, he had sexually assaulted and killed a number of women and even children, female children. Okay. I don't call them underage women like some of these ignorant folks out here, including, doctors and reporters, big time people. No, I call them exactly what they are, children. Okay? No such thing as underage women. No such thing. Either it's an underage child or it's a woman, an adult. Okay? So let's get that clear. Children and women, not underage women, but children, female children, all right? So, these two had, this guy had been going on for years and years and years, raping and killing, okay? And she was his accomplice. Now, when they were caught and they had her in the hot seat. She actually told them that yes, he was killing these girls, and this is what he did, XYZ. And of course, she made herself to be a victim, an unwilling participant, saying she was afraid. That's why she didn't go to the police, and that's why she had to obey him and be an accomplice. He said the same thing about her. He said she didn't know anything about it. She only did it to survive because of how abusive I was to her, and that's why she never went to the police. And he actually confessed. Once she told on him, he confessed his murders of the children and the young women. Okay, and they were as young as 9 years old, all the way to maybe 20 something. Okay, so these were very very young females. Okay, children and women. Now, at first, she was telling people that she had no choice. She was a victim herself. He was beating her. He was doing all these bad things to her, and people didn't quite believe it. There was just something of a performance there, you see. And she tried to her performance was one of somebody who's completely unremarkable, who might even be borderline mentally retarded or slow, not retarded. I'm not saying the right word. Mentally developmentally disabled. Um, she tried to make herself basically look dumber than she was. And again, her murderous husband was confirming that. He said that she was as dumb as a doornail, and that she'd even eat hay. She was so dumb. And that she had to be guided by a man. And even her first husband, she was married before, had the same thing to say, that she was not a person that made decisions. She had to be guided and steered and told what to do. Okay. She had a set of kids with her first husband, and she basically abandoned them. She basically walked away, claiming that the first husband, was beating her and abusive to her. Now, how did she meet this second husband that turned out to be France's most infamous serial killer? Well, she met him writing through an ad I think it was a Christian personals ad in a magazine, where he had placed an ad, prisoner looking for pen pals of all ages, anyone and everyone to help take away the loneliness. Excuse me. So she wrote to that. She chose to write to someone in prison. That's the first thing you need to look at. Because these women are not real human beings. They're monsters, just like the men they hide behind. Okay? Now, when you look at her saying she was a victim and she was trapped, you have to understand the first thing she did was reach out to someone in prison. Okay, now I'm not saying everybody in prison is a bad person, all right? Some people make mistakes, you know what I mean? I don't think there's a whole lot of innocent people in prison. Sometimes it happens. There are innocent people there, but also with those who have made mistakes, you know what I mean? People can change. Sometimes people are young and dumb, they drive drunk. Some of them steal cars, some of them steal stuff out of Walmart and they end up in jail. So you have varying degrees of criminality that makes people go to jail and makes people go to prison. Okay, but check this out. This man told her within a very short period of time why he was in prison, that he had been a lifetime of stealing, raping, and assaulting women, and that he had multiple charges on him. And he had told her that's basically what all I've done all my life. Excuse me. So they made a pact. He asked her to marry her within a few months of writing to each other. Matter of fact, they exchanged over 133 letters. He wrote her 133 letters. She wrote about 80 something letters before they decided to get married in that short period of time. All right. And she had never even met the guy yet, but she was going to get married to someone in prison who himself had told her that he had been doing these horrible crimes to women. Most anybody else wouldn't even reach out to somebody in prison. Excuse me. Okay. It already takes a certain kind of woman, excuse me, to reach out to these kinds of people. Okay. And number two, most women are not, healthy, normal women. I know that there's these twisted up, perverted ones that get off on being with serial killers and rapists. It turns them on. And these are the ones I'm talking about today. These are scary ass monsters. Okay. And they don't look like a devil or a scary monster. They don't look like a devil or a scary monster. They look like anybody else. And that's basically how she portrayed herself, as a very forgettable, unobtrusive, unconspicuous, unremarkable person. And almost slow, like somebody who you don't think is manipulating and cunning as the way she was. And she had the men fooled too that she was with. So she reached out to him. They got into a relationship, and when he got released, they got married, and they made a pact with each other. She wanted him to kill her ex-husband and try to get her kids back. And in exchange for him doing that for her, she would help him find young girls, virgins that he could rape. Now, this guy had been a lifetime rapist. He had been in jail, prison for raping. But this man had never killed until he got with her. And the killing started about 2 months after he got out of prison and got with her. So this is something else you need to keep in mind, is that while this guy was a horrible person to begin with, she gave him the license. She gave him the license to take it further and kill. And we all know, when any of us who have done any kind of in-depth, research into crime and criminal profiling and forensics and things like that, we know that child murderers and people who rape and kill, a lot of times it starts off as raping, right? It starts off as voyeurism or certain kinds of inappropriate things that cross a line, and then it starts off as, molesting. They molest sometimes even their own kids or stepkids or neighbors' kids or whoever they can get access to. And then it increases and it advances into killing. Now there's not just sexual assault, but there's the kill, because it's all about control. It's all about power over a helpless person. And children, women and children are always the main targets. I mean, there's men that get that too, that get violated, but more so it's women and especially children, right? Vulnerable members of society. So they made a pact with each other. Of course, the documentary didn't say anything about the husband actually getting killed or the second husband trying to make a go at it at all, because what ended up happening was she was helping him to get those young virgins to rape and kill. And she was the ones picking them out and scoping them out. That's another thing you have to remember. She was the one that says, hey, I like this one here. Or hey, let's get that one there. Yeah, she was the one. And she was the one that would be driving the vehicle and stopping to tell the women, the young girls and the women to get on into the van and ride. So they didn't have a reservation about getting in the van with a stranger because it was a woman. And a lot of times she used her infant son. Yeah, she used her infant son for them to get in, and then those girls were raped and killed. And she not only watched and was there as her husband raped and killed these young girls, but she at times participated. She would even check to see if they were virgins manually, okay? She would hold them down. And to think she had a child, she had had children of her own. This is not just a woman, but it is a mother. How can a mother sit there and watch a child get raped, brutally, violently raped by her husband? How can any human being sit there? You get what I'm saying? This woman reminds me of the incubator that I was unfortunate enough to have been born to. Although I don't know anything about her watching any kind of murderous things happening, but just that whole, this woman has no remorse. She felt nothing. That she was completely detached, and these girls were none of her concern. And that is exactly what reminds me of the incubator, because that was exactly how it was when I was going through And she was there. She was there for every last beating, horrible sexual beating that I had to endure at the hands of her husband, the step person. And to this very day, this woman has no remorse, no feelings whatsoever about it. It is none of her concern. She does not care. And if anything, she goes out and spreads a narrative that it's all lies and it's all a vendetta. Just like she spread that vendetta narrative when they called Child Protective Services on her shortly after I was born for neglect and abuse and wanted to take me away. But back to this one here. This is why I'm talking about it, because it really, I think this might be one of the more extreme ones, but that whole, this woman is an incubator. I mean, she basically abandoned her kids, and whatever child she had there, she used to lure young girls so her and her husband could brutally violate them in the worst way and then kill them. I mean, and check this out, that baby that they had together, this couple, they had this satanic, symbolic, horrible perversion in their head. So they wanted to link each other and bond to each other eternally. So they together found a girl, horribly violated her together, killed her together, and then they consummated and made a child on that same day, after they killed that person. So it was taking a life away and then creating a life. And this was their pact, their bond together. So can you imagine that? That is so horrible to do that. Can you imagine this? I think this baby is now an adult man, and he probably changed his name and identity. But to know this is how you came about, that is just a horrible thing to do to anybody. You know what I mean? Excuse me. That is a horrible thing. Horrible. So you can just this is an incubator, and you can't tell me that they didn't abuse that baby as well. You can't tell me that they treated that baby normal and healthy, and then they were out here doing these things to other people's children. You cannot tell me that. Okay. So this woman definitely fits the extreme incubator category, right? Horrible, malignant, psychopathic. And the thing is, she told people she doesn't feel anything. She doesn't feel any remorse. Uh, her thoughts were, well, rape doesn't kill you. Rape never killed anybody. Those were her thoughts. Those were her thoughts and what she said. Like I said in the beginning, she tried to put it as she was a victim and he was, holding her hostage and making her help and all of that. But then it comes out and she confesses that she actually picked out the girls herself. Okay? And of course, she's still trying to manipulate and she's still trying to perform. And so they decide to make her take some tests, some IQ tests, and to test her intelligence. And heretofore, a lot of people had the impression that she was slow, that she was just, a little slow. And, well, guess what, folks? On one of those tests, she scored 133, where the average score for the average person in France is 27. Did you hear that? The average score on that test for the average French person is 27. That's the average intelligence level. And this woman here scored 133, more than 100 points above the average. Holy smokes. So this is when they realized this woman was not a victim. This woman was not some codependent, distressed, woman out here. No. He was not the leader. She was the brains and the mastermind behind this. Because remember, he never killed. Yes, he raped. But he never killed until he got with her. Literally 2 months after he got out and got with her. 2 freaking months. And guess what? They found out that both of them got sexually aroused after these killings and would do all these things with each other. This is what I've been saying, folks. This is what I've been saying. There are narc incubators out there that have evil, sick perversions. And you would not be able to tell by looking at them. And they are so cunning and manipulative. They'll have you think that they're the sweetest, kindest, most generous person. They'll have the whole performance down pat. This woman was the mastermind and brains behind this serial killer. Not saying he was an angel and he was just this complete angel before he met her. He was already on that path. But perhaps if he hadn't met her, he wouldn't have escalated to that level. Right? And she was with it. She was doing it too. It wasn't just all him. It was her. She loved it. She got off on it. She sat there for all of it. She sat there for all of it. So, yeah, folks, it is definitely something worth watching, in my opinion. I think we need to talk about the fact that women like Ghislaine Maxwell and some of us who have been unfortunately born to incubators of the same sort, might not be the same extreme degree to where they're killing people, but there definitely are many, many, many of them out there, And oddly enough, I venture to say, some of these types of women, yes, man, uh, are out there, even being advocates against such things. You have to be real careful. These types of predators, these types of female predators, sometimes can be found in advocacy groups that speak out against such things because I don't know, maybe that's where where they go look for prey. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you have advocacy groups speaking out against such things, you're going to have people who have been victimized, in these types of ways. And of course, you're going to have predators go into these circles looking for prey, pretending to be an advocate against those things. Just a thought. Just a thought. But yeah, what else have I got to say about that? The fact that she reached out to someone in prison, and when he told her what he was in there for, he didn't lie and try to hide it. He told her. She not only continued, but she went on to marry that kind of person. And she hadn't had any criminal record all her life beforehand. She didn't even have a speeding ticket or anything. That's another thing. So you gotta really seriously take a look at that because if you think about monsters like this, you think about, well, they are, you can tell because they've already been in a life of crime. And now he already had a life of crime. He had a nice rap sheet before he got started with her on that level, but she didn't have any kind of criminal record. She didn't have any kind of history of being a horrible, dangerous person. But the inside was always that way. It was completely void of any kind of empathy or compassion or she was very upset when the court trials were going on because she was in handcuffs and she was uncomfortable. She was not upset because she was responsible for all this horrific stuff. She had no remorse for it. She had no remorse, and she said so herself. She had no remorse for it, you know. So these types of people, they're only sad or upset because they've been caught, and now they have to pay the responsibility and be accountable. They're not sad and upset that they've hurt and ruined so many lives, children. I mean, she sat through so many of these girls right there and even assisted and participated. And some of these children were the same age as her own children. Remember, she was a mother. And I just feel very sad for her children to have been born to a horrible, horrible incubator such as her. Horrible, 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 horrible. So, folks, when you look at these people and when you look at these men that are out here being arrested for these types of things, understand that a lot of times there's a woman driving that. That's what I've always said about the dynamics that I have gone through. The man that did these horrible things to me, he was horrible, all right. He was no saint. But I contend that he may not have been as extreme in the abuse if it wasn't for my own flesh and blood mother. And that is the truth. That is the ugly truth I ran away from for so many years. And once I faced it, I was all the better for it. It was hard to face it, but once I finally locked in and faced it and processed it with the help of my facilitators and counselors and mental health facilitators, I was better off for facing that truth. I hope nobody else listening has to have gone through something that extreme. But if you have, the best thing you can do is face it. It's real. It exists. It exists in varying degrees. This one here is a very extreme degree. But these types of people, they don't start off killing right away. They start off abusing for years and years. This man was raping and assaulting for years and years. And who knows what this Monique Olivier was doing for years and years. And these women hide behind these types of men. They don't necessarily outright physically assault and rape the victims themselves, but they hide, they choose these types of men to be with, and then what they do is they manipulate these men into doing the very things that they would like to see done themselves but won't do. This is the kind of evil monster you're talking about, because they like to hide behind these men for plausible deniability, and if they get busted, then they'll play the, oh, he was beating me card, oh, he was forcing me, oh, I was a victim of him too. Isn't that what Ghislaine Maxwell's trying to say? I was a victim too. Sure you were. Except all the victims said you was part of it and was the main brains behind it. It's these women. Okay? Society needs to stop looking at women as these weaker vessels of bullshit, okay? Because these women are just like men, okay? They can be just as cold and perverted and sick and twisted as the men, and sometimes even worse. You know what I mean? Nobody gets a free ride here, but I'm just saying, don't overlook the woman too. Don't let them immediately say, oh, I'm a victim, oh, he forced me, but you were the one who reached out to him in prison, and when he told you, it wasn't even 4 months, when he told you what he was in there for, you turned around and married him. So this is what you chose. This is what you wanted. You picked out the girls, the young girls. You picked out these children to be just horribly, horribly done. You were the one picking them out. So folks, yeah, was Monique Olivier a pawn and a victim, or was she the driving force behind it? You know what I gotta say about it? She was the driving force, because I know that archetype. I know that kind of archetype very well, that malignant, narcissistic, psychopathic incubator. I know that archetype very well. These women have cravings to kill. They feel like they want to kill something, kill somebody. They get off. They get sexually off on other people's demise and misery. And they get a sexual rise, a perverted sexual rise, off of having power over helpless children. And I'll tell you something. Some of the worst monsters out there are the ones that do it to their own flesh and blood kids, that sit there and not only enable such things, but egg it on and set it up even, and manipulate their husbands into doing it while they sit and watch. Okay? These are some nasty, nasty monsters, and that karma that is due to them, oh no, I wouldn't want it. I'm telling you, they might not be sitting in jail. They might be looking high and pretty, like they got away with it. Not everyone goes to a physical jail or prison. Not every one of these predators, a lot of them escape the physical bars, but no one escapes the non-physical bars. ours, and karma and justice. None of us escapes it. You know why? Because it's built into us. And we can lie to everyone outside of us, and then maybe we can fool the entire world. But you cannot fool yourself and that part of yourself, that silent sentry that sees and knows and remembers everything and takes account of everything, called karma. You cannot escape that. And eventually, you must pay the Pied Piper. Everyone working will get paid. Everyone living will get that karma according to how you live. That's a harsh lesson to learn. But some of these people are monsters. They are beyond, I don't think they can, no, there's just no words for it. But there is a special place in hell. And I'm not talking about that Christian hellfire hell. I'm talking about a much, much worse, scarier hell. Not hellfire, but the hell of the mind that one will go through at one point or another. And for some of these people, it starts, it's like a frog boiling in water. It doesn't just come on strong like a light switch, boom. It's over years and years and years. Their mental health corrodes, and they start going crazier and crazier and crazier because it's catching up to them. That evil stuff they've been doing, it's catching up to them. It's catching up to them. And as they age, it just keeps increasing and corroding and eating them away like an ugly, ugly, monstrous cancer, which is what they are. So back to this Monique Olivier. Yeah, she definitely reminds me so much of the incubator that how can you sit there and be a mother and and just let other people's children be abused and killed eventually, but there's a lot of incubators that'll sit there and let their own children get abused by their husbands, their boyfriends and husbands, or even their own brothers. I know of one incubator that helped cover up the abuse of her daughter by her own brother, and even put the daughter had her institutionalized, talking about she was lying, and had I mean, they really just did her wrong. They did her wrong. And I'm going to tell you something. They created a monster because that one, she grew up to be a very, very smart person, and she used the law to her advantage, and she went on to blackmail that whole family for her own gain. And they, now they can't control her. I mean, she's fully grown and she's doing what she's doing, but yeah. So folks, check this Netflix series out. It's very important, I think, in my eyes, for people to know about this kinds of stuff, that we don't need to overlook. Sometimes the culprit is not as cut and clear as you think. Sometimes the culprit, they have a saying, behind every good man is a woman, right? Well, behind some of these horrible, horrible, horrible serial killers is a woman. And she is the brains and the driving force. And I've seen that couple dynamic. Like I said, I grew up with that couple dynamic where the woman was the brains and the driving force. And it was very clear and apparent, And the woman had the performance, of being a soft-spoken, very sweet and generous and kind woman, when she actually also had a very, 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 very dark side to her. And there was no kind of compassion or nurturing or protection even of her own flesh and blood child. In fact, she was worse than the pedophile husband that she used to eke out all of these things that she wanted to experience on her own flesh and blood. Yes, perverted, perverted. But these are the kind of people that'll go around and telling themselves that they're good people, and that they're better than other people because they're immoral, and we're moral people and we're upstanding, and those people over there are immoral and sexually immoral. And then totally split in the fact that you have participated and not only enabled but set up violent sexual abuse of your own flesh and blood child, and you sit there and watch as if it's your favorite TV show. Special place in hell for these kind of people, and you know it. All right, folks, that's it. Check out this one, Friday night Netflix movie night. Well, it's not a movie, it's a series. But also, I want to briefly talk about the Murdaugh trials. What do you think about that? I'm so glad he was found guilty. I didn't think they were going to find him guilty. This guy has 100 years of family in the community that's been prosecutors and lawyers and big time powerful people. So I thought, okay, he's probably going to get off, But it seems he didn't. So that was a pleasant surprise. And sometimes, sometimes justice does work for certain things. Sometimes the horrible monsters do go to prison, to physical prison. So it's good to know that in this case with the Murdaugh, they went to prison. Also, of course, Olivier, she got hers. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. It's Friday here. I'm going to go have some breakfast, and then I'm going to hit the spa, and then I'm going to get a haircut, and then later this evening I might even have a nice event that I will go to. So I hope you have a good Friday as well, and we will see you when we'll see you. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you soon.